All right. Good evening, everybody. I'm Katie, and shortly Andrew is going to be joining me. And tonight we are talking all about our upcoming online course, Plan Like a Pro. So tonight is going to be a really focused, just FAQ session where we're going to go over all the top bullet points that a prospective student would need to know before deciding whether this course is right for them. So I'm going to bring Andrew in.
Oh,
Welcome, Andrew
you did
Skirka.
not last very long on your own.
I wasn't sure what I was doing on my own. This was a 5 seconds before go live decision. Oh, okay. Katie's gonna start solo.
So we did not do a wonderful job marketing this event tonight, but it'll be available for replay, so it's all good. If you are watching tonight, please ask questions. We'd love to
Please
answer
be
them.
interactive.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, our goal is probably 30 minutes. And as I mentioned, we're just going to dive right in. And we really want this to be for anybody who's considering the course and maybe you don't want to read 4 web pages of information and you just want the highlights here. So, Andrew, are you ready? Are the cats ready?
Yeah, Luxor just decided he wanted out, so he'll be back.
All right.
Okay, so the first question, Katie, what does a student learn during this course?
Yes. Okay. So broadly speaking, this is a holistic framework that is going to help a student learn to plan a backpacking trip from the idea to the undertaking of the trip. And so that's kind of broadly, and then more specifically, we'll talk about there's modules on conditions assessment so that you know how to plan for your trip, the right gear to bring. We'll talk about gear selection. That's a really big module. We talk about how to plan food appropriately and take the right amounts. We talk about fitness and skills training. And then there will be a module on map creation, both digital and paper maps. And then we also talk about creating an emergency contact document so that people can contact you while you're out there. You can contact others.
So this is not on the script, but I think it's worth asking. So what's the alternative? You could take this course or...
Oh, you can trial and error figure it out like you and I probably both did over
I definitely
a
tried.
lot more time and
errored it. Yeah.
Which I think takes a lot more time and wasted money probably, and it's just figuring things out as you go.
Let's actually go into detail about that. Maybe tell some stories too. So the reason we say it's kind of a waste of time, and if you trial and error, the reason it could be a waste of time and money. First is that the money thing is really easy. All that it takes is for you to purchase a shelter or a sleeping bag that doesn't exactly fit your needs, and immediately this course will pay for itself. And then the time thing is just so nice because this is a framework. If you just go through these steps, you'll have a good trip plan by the end, and you're not at risk of going down these rabbit holes for things that aren't necessary.
Mm-hmm.
I would also say too, you spend a lot, for a lot of people, including myself, we don't have a lot of time to get into the outdoors and have these experiences. So it's kind of a shame if when you do go out, if your plan is kind of half baked and your trip is maybe not as successful as it could have been because you just didn't have that really solid plan going into it.
Yes, and I will add while we're talking about this, you're going to save yourself probably a lot of headaches and stress, because I can remember trips where I didn't know to look the conditions up ahead of time, or I didn't know how to do that. And so I was like, well, gosh, what do I pack? Do I need this? How do I know what I need? So I was just trying to figure it out as I went, and ended up taking the wrong gear that was maybe not appropriate for the conditions. And I was stressed about it the entire time. Whereas if you go through a process where you're evaluating all these things, you don't have to have all that stress. You can feel pretty good that you've prepared as well as you can.
Katie, what's the single biggest gear mistake you've ever made?
Oh gosh. I mean, it's on the AT when my starting pack weight was 55 pounds. Does that count?
That's a pretty good one.
Yeah.
I would second that one. The one that really comes to mind for me is a short sleeve rain jacket on the Colorado Trail during monsoon season.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay. So the second question. Second question. How is this course delivered?
Yes. So
distributed?
It's so the course takes place over 10 weeks, and the material is dripped out, kind of paced out over those 10 weeks. But it's self-paced. So there's reading and there's assignments. Students can go through it at the pace that they want as far as the material that's already been published. And then there's 3 live calls that take place. And those are optional, and they're going to be recorded. So if you can't make the live calls, it's fine. There will be a replay.
how critical is it? A lot of the questions we get are like, you know, I'm traveling when some of these live calls are supposed to happen, or I'm on a totally different time zone than anywhere in North America. Like, is that okay?
That's totally okay. Not a problem at all. If you're traveling, you can just get caught up when you get back. We have this awesome team of instructors who are there and they're very like hands-on and very supportive. So they can support you in getting up to speed, catching up on assignments if you need to. And again, you can like read the assignments at your own pace.
So let's paint the picture of like the perfect, or like the perfect student for this course.
Yes.
In terms of like their goals, their experience level, like ages or genders or other demographics. So what would you say is like, who's the perfect student?
Yes. So I think it's anyone who wants to, again, like learn a complete framework and feel like they're not missing the things that they don't know to research or to like dive into. Anyone who wants to avoid those like beginner, intermediate level mistakes that you and I were just talking about. As far as like what type, so anyone who is a backpacker or wants to be a backpacker, I would say very broadly. And then as far as like what kind of backpacker, I think this framework is applicable to trips that take place really anywhere. I mean, most of our experience is in the US, but we've had international students use this same framework and it works equally well. So it's trips of any length, but we will get more into a goal trip later about how to like make this really like the material really specific and really work for you. But yeah, and then I think anyone who wants to have that experience of like having a coach, which when you have a coach in anything, I think it just really accelerates your learning because it's someone who's right there looking at the work that you're doing and saying like, oh, hey, did you think about this? Or have you considered XYZ? Or, oh, that's a great idea. And you could also do blah, blah, blah. So it's like getting that feedback, which I think is super valuable.
So I'm often skeptical when I get sales pitches to the effect of, this product is great for everybody. Because if it's great for everybody, that almost means that it's great for nobody, because it's just not like nuanced enough, not specific enough, not like doesn't meet precise needs. And so when we say though, like that this planning course is suitable for all locations and all 3 season conditions and all genders and all ages and all experience levels, with kind of focus there on like beginner and intermediate backpackers, like we really mean that, because the way that we do the materials are created to be like extremely flexible. But as part of the Plan Like a Pro course, you will select a very specific goal course or goal trip. So like you will identify early on, you will say, my goal at the end of this trip is to do a 5-day long trip on the Appalachian Trail, or a 7-day long trip in the Grand Canyon, or a like 10-day trip in the High Sierra. It'd be something very specific, and beyond just like location and duration, but also like in July, or the High Sierra Trail, and like something very, very specific. And then all of the assignments in this course, you will target that particular trip. So when you come up with a gear list, it will be for that specific trip. So you're learning how to apply the resources to a very specific trip, but that framework then afterwards can be recycled for any other location or any other hiking friend, or any trip in your future.
Yes. But Andrew, what if I want to do a through hike?
Yeah. So if you want to do a through hikes are hard. This is not a through hiker course. The framework can be repeated for, like, if you break your through hike down into like sections, it actually works pretty well. So if you say, for example, I'm going to hike the Pacific Crest Trail, and then if you look at the Pacific Crest Trail, you're like, well, the desert, so the first 700 miles is kind of one section. That's kind of like one trip. And then the High Sierra is kind of another trip. So that will be like Kennedy Meadows through like north of Tahoe. And then Northern California through Southern Oregon is kind of another trip. And then your final trip is like Central Oregon through to the Washington or to the Canadian border. If you break it down into those trips and then just recycle the process, it works pretty well. But it's not going to teach you, for example, like how to through hike or how to do mail drops or how to use, how to be the red dot following the blue line.
Yes.
Did I get the colors right? Or is it the other way?
I don't know.
Okay, yeah, I don't know.
Not sure.
I know those are the two colors. I just don't remember which.
Yes.
Okay, Katie, what's the time requirement?
So the course starts on March 24th and it will wrap up on June 6th. And so we usually say, so we've of course polled past students on how much time they've taken to do this course. And I think the average is 8 to 24 hours. And that will depend on like how much experience you have coming into it. So if you have lots of experience with creating gear lists and all of your gear is already weighed, that assignment will be much easier for you than somebody who's like completely new to the backpacking world. Or similarly, if you have dabbled in researching route conditions before and you have some familiarity with those sites, you'll be able to get through the conditions assessment a little faster than someone who hasn't done that before. And then of course, like everything, the deeper you go and like the more time you spend on it, probably the more you're going to get out of it. And like the more you're really going to absorb the process of how you do this.
Reminds me of what my 12th grade AP English teacher told me. Like we were all very like grade focused in that class. And she's like, you all need to stop being so focused on grades and just realize that the amount of work you put into this course will be directly proportional to the value you get out of it. I was like, oh,
dang it. She's
but
right.
Can you just tell me how to get an A?
Just give me the A. Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about, so the cost of this trip is $175. Yes. And that includes a free copy of the Ultimate Hiker's Gear Guide, which which National Geographic published and I authored. Mm-hmm. And then also includes a 2 months pro subscription to CalTopo, as well as a few vendor discounts. So you quickly start getting into that offsetting that $175.
Well, there's other perks too. Also, free high route download, right? At the end of it.
Okay. Yeah.
Download. Did you know about that?
I remember doing it, but yeah,
it's on the website.
Kind of forgotten.
And then also, if people decide to take a guided trip with us.
Yeah. What do we decide? Is it
that the course fee will be applied as credit?
The entire course fee will be applied as credit.
That's what's on the website.
Okay, I guess the entire course fee will be applied as a credit. Actually, that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's totally reasonable. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So those are the hard-hitting details. Do we want to get into some of the more nuanced questions?
I think we go there. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think that's a good question for you. Will you tell us about the backstory of how this course was developed?
Yeah. So actually, it's kind of a little bit of a fun story. So this Plan Like a Pro was originally launched in 2020 in the depths of COVID. So 5 years ago, like right around this time of year. And you can imagine that while I did not own a cruise ship or a movie theater, my business was effectively like dead in the water. And it was like, how am I going to like pay the mortgage this month? So had been wanting to do an online course for a while. So like we pulled a couple of like all night sessions and pulled this thing together. And the course itself was heavily, heavily rooted in what we were already offering to our guided trip clients. Not even offering, what we were requiring our guided trip clients to do prior to their own trips. So that way, then when they show up to the trailhead, they know like that we know that they're well prepared and they know that they're well prepared. So we just had to tweak that a little bit. And then that curriculum itself, a lot of that was rooted in my own personal trips. And again, as we mentioned at the top of the show, just trialing and erroring all the time for years and years, doing lots of through hikes and lots of shorter hikes and trying to figure out how to efficiently and properly plan for a trip.
Right. For folks who might not be as familiar with your backstory, this is also a general outline of the same framework you use for many of your really long trips. Right? Like Great Western Loop,
right. Yeah,
it all
kind of, it's definitely a more refined version of that. I wish.
That's what I think about with my early hikes too.
But in 2002, someone was like, or my mom and dad, instead of my mom being like, Andrew, you need to carry this personal locator beacon out there with you or else you're going to die. Mm-hmm. I wish that she'd been like, Andrew, I saw this online course that'll teach you how to plan for your Appalachian Trail through hike. I wish that she had done that. It would have saved me so much like I think like discomfort.
Discomfort.
A lot of discomfort.
Yep.
So yeah, like for the viewers who don't know, I mean, in my 20s, I was like a dirtbag through hiker. I started with the Appalachian Trail in 2002, and then I like very quickly upped the ante. I walked 7,775 miles from Quebec to Washington State. I walked 6,875 miles around the American West, and then my big last like long through hike was 4,700 miles around Alaska and the Yukon.
So some long walks.
Yeah, some long walks. A lot of smaller ones sprinkled in there too. So, Katie, if a prospective student's out there and they're like, well, how do I know if this course or this framework is going to work for me? What would you tell them?
Yes. So I would say if you choose a goal trip according to what we've already talked about, as well as we can cover actually what would make a good goal trip in a minute. If you choose a goal trip and you go through these steps and apply them, you will get value out of this course. This is, as Andrew mentioned, this is what we use with all of our guided trip clients. It's literally been used for thousands of trips at this point and like refined bit by bit over time. So again, it's like we have all of these resources that we're providing. It's what we're using on our guided trips, and it's what we use on our personal trips as well. So yeah, do you want to get into the goal?
Can I interject there? So I think that is like the telling thing that like if you've produced something of value that you're trying to tell other people is important, like do you actually use it too?
Oh yeah, totally.
And I actually find myself all the time using some of the like the gear list template I use before I go on every single trip. I print it out on my computer, and like I don't have to get as quite detailed as we do in the that we require of students, but like I print it out, I use it as a checklist. I'm like, do I have everything I need? Same thing with the conditions assessment for any new trip. It's like, okay, let me just make sure that like I have a reasonable expectation about the conditions that I'll likely encounter. Just kind of walk right through the process.
Yep, it's very comprehensive, and something that's nice is once you've been through the process a few times, especially with like the gear list, made me think of this is, for me at least, I have this gear spreadsheet that has a lot of tabs, 15 to 20 tabs. It's like, okay, here's what I take to California in July, and here's what I take to the Grand Canyon in November. And so I can just like reference real quickly those gear lists and then make a new one for this upcoming trip if I need to change anything at all. And so it's like the process goes much faster. The trip planning process goes much faster each time because I have all of this material that I've been accumulating with each trip as well. So I think that's nice.
So the other things I would say about what, like how you know it will work for you, two other things. One is that the materials are very broadly applicable. As we kind of talked about earlier, they've been designed in such a way that they are relevant to just a lot of locations and different backpacking styles and different experience levels. So it's a lot different than like a gear list you might find online where you're like, oh, I really like this gear list that someone's put together. And then you start digging into it and you're like, well, wait a minute. But like, that's a male and I'm a woman, or this was for the Appalachian Trail in August and I'm doing it in June. So you start to see those discrepancies, and then it's kind of stops being as useful because it's difficult to modify their thing to your thing. So the materials are again like just flexible. And then the other thing that we would say is that just you're going to turn this general framework into a very specific trip plan. So at the end of it, you basically like have a number of materials that are all put together, have been looked over by our team of instructors, and you're basically ready to walk out the door and go do this trip.
Yep. So yeah, let's talk more about that goal trip and just maybe a few more specifics about it. So we've mentioned that should be a trip that, or I think it's ideal if this is a trip you plan to take this year or within the next 12 months. The planning framework works best for trips that are like 4 to, I would say 2 to 3 weeks at most. And like Andrew was saying earlier, if you have a trip that's longer than that, just kind of break it into chunks and repeat this process over that. And then I think it's helpful if it's something, actually any learning environment is helpful if you're challenged somewhat, because that's how learning occurs, is like when you're bumping up against what you're already comfortable with. So finding something that a trip that challenges your skills a little bit, or challenges your fitness level or your like capacity to plan complicated logistics, anything like that. I think that makes a rewarding trip, and I think that makes a good goal trip for this. Is there anything else you'd add to that?
No, it's all pretty good. We have one comment so far in the chat from Kayak Man. Fritos and cheese, beans and rice. Sounds like he's getting excited about the meal planning module.
Hey, me too.
I'm gonna guess he's spent a little bit of time on the website before. So yeah, let's go to the next section. Let's brag for our instructors a little bit. So we have 6 instructors. All of those 6 instructors double as guides for our in-person trip. So this is like an experienced, credible group. Yeah. It's a mixed gender team. We have a couple of men, a couple of women. Most of them have, not even most of them, all of them have experience throughout the contiguous United States and Alaska. A couple of highlights: Tina and Whit are both Triple Crowners. Ella is a mother of a 2 or 3-year-old. Michaela has set FKTs on the Colorado Trail and the Long Trail. Jose is an IMGA single pitch instructor and the first person to complete the Yosemite High Route. And Hunter is our full-time program manager.
Yes.
Their full bios are online. So I think it's maybe worth pointing out, it's like all these instructors are really good, but I think there's like something else worth saying. If you are like soliciting information off the internet, so like, hey, like review my gear list.
Right. Yeah.
Sometimes, like a lot of the times you'll get good info, but you have no idea who that person is and what their background is and whether it's good advice or not. And I'm not going to say that we always offer someone like perfect advice, but man, it's at least like pretty vetted. And these instructors, I mean, I'm going to be willing to bet that someone like Hunter, who's been an instructor with us for 5 or 6 years, he's probably reviewed like 1,000 gear lists. So he's kind of has seen it all and is very familiar with gear. So he can kind of he can offer like good, relevant, time-tested advice or proven advice in a way that a lot of other experts can't.
Agreed. And I will just mention they're all very wonderful humans if you care about that. Like when I talk to our instructor team, I'm just like, oh man, they're so fantastic. Like I love hanging out with these people and they're so knowledgeable and really just like very service oriented people. So like love to talk about this stuff with people.
The big regret internally with this little company that I have is that none of the guides and the instructors, only one of them or 2 of them live in town. Yeah, it's kind of a shame because we'd spend a lot more time together, I think, if we lived closer. Yeah. So we are running right now. We are running just this one session, March 24th. Well, I got to be honest. The demand has been healthy enough that this morning I just launched a second session that will start on May 19th. So if that works better for your schedule, go for it. We're allowing. So this first session is capped at 50 students. And we're pretty close to that cap. So if you're wanting to get in on the session 1, I wouldn't wait until the weekend to sign up. I'm not sure if it'll still be available. I'll be sending out a newsletter tomorrow. We're going to do like a final last-minute marketing push, and I expect that it's probably going to fill up.
That's about it. Those are the highlights. I mean, there's just a few like what platform do we host this on? It's Google Classroom, but we'll teach you how to use that if you're not familiar with it. It's pretty intuitive once you get the hang of it.
Okay.
I think we've covered all the big ones.
And it's pretty much crickets. They're in the chat box. So unless someone says something in the next 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 seconds. Then Katie, thank you for joining me tonight.
It was a pleasure.
We see a lot of each other.
We sure do.
Over virtual calls. Thank you everyone who joined us tonight. And if you are watching a recap of this, all right. Okay, here we let me finish with the ending.
Yes.
If you're watching the recap of this, thank you for tuning in as long as you have. We hope that you found it valuable. We hope that if you do find it valuable and you feel like the course is a good fit for you, then by all means sign up. We'd love to have you. So the question is, I know your instructors have been vetted by you and have some great credentials, and I know that you're not going to be super involved, but will you be involved in online messaging chats, et cetera, et cetera? So I personally am not involved in the day-to-day running of the Plan Like a Pro. At this point, I'm actually proud of saying this, the online instructors will give you much better feedback than I can. They're much more on top of it when it comes to gear and they see a lot. They just see a lot more. So while I I have reviewed my fair share of gear lists. Like for the first, oh, I mean, I could quickly pull up a spreadsheet and tell you how many gear lists I've reviewed, but it's like deeply it's probably approaching about 1,000. So, but it's just not practical at this point for me to get involved in the day-to-day.
We'll say that username, hunkalove75. That's great.
It's a good username.
Yes.
I agree. Yeah. Okay, everyone. Have a great night. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.